Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my AM reading video for the end of March 2024. This is definitely going up later than I hoped it would, and competing with construction noise outside and possibly lighting issues. But I didn't want to wait any longer than I already have to, jumpstart this video and get to a bunch more, hopefully, coming up in April. And at least I have books to talk about. I guess that's the most important thing. But yeah, I'm feeling a bit awkward because there's still videos I want to make to wrap up March, so that's what's going to take up the beginning of April, I guess. But one thing I actually did film last month that I wanted to put in this video is the cherry blossoms in Washington, D.C. This is around the time of year where the cherry blossoms are blooming and peaking, although by this point we're past peak bloom and most of the trees have gone from, pink-white blossoms to the greenery of spring, which is beautiful in its own way, but not quite as special. And another special or bittersweet thing in DC this year is we've gotten ourselves a tree celebrity, if you would. There's this new seawall project that the National Park Service wants to put up around the tidal basin because there's a lot of flooding and it's actually pretty dangerous for the trees. But to do this new seawall project, they have to cut down some trees and later they'll plant new ones. And one of the trees they're going to cut down is this really unusual tree named Stumpy. It's a really hollow, small little tree, which nevertheless keeps blooming with cherry blossoms every year. And so it's become this sort of symbol, I think, of resilience and being the underdog. And Stumpy has amassed quite a following. I can link to, news articles down below. So I decided this year that I should especially go to see Stumpy and say goodbye, so I made a little video tribute. All right, but no more beating around the bush here. That feels like a really bad joke pun. Bye, Stumpy. But anyway, I'm here to talk about my reading. So as always in these videos, I'm going to start with a short story that I'm reading from a literary journal. And right now I'm reading one story a week from Pembrooke magazine, issue 55. And the one I read this week is called Hero by Bergita Bugarija. And this is a interesting story. It takes place in a Soviet country, seemingly near the collapse of the Soviet Union. Things are, kind of bad, and it seems like the populace is turning to this, singing competition reality TV show. It's called The World Is Your Stage, and they're turning to it for escape. So we're following these two characters. We start with this elderly man named Branko, and then we turn to his neighbor Teresa, who is a teenager. And Branko is someone with not a lot of good going on. His wife was killed by a streetcar recently. She had been healthy. In Teresa's section, we learned she had committed suicide. And Branko himself has terminal cancer. So there's not much beauty or hope in the world, and I think, when it comes to The World Is Your Stage, which everyone's obsessed with, I think he sees the superficiality of it a little bit, or he comes to see it because, the whole thing is a singing competition, and he happens to hear Teresa singing Mariah Carey song or something, and he's blown away by her voice. And when he calls to suggest to the producers of the show that she should be on it, they're like, yeah, but, it's boring. Your origin story of how you found her is, oh, I was listening to my neighbor sing. So obviously that has nothing to do with talent. They're looking, for sensationalism or something. So anyway, we then jump over to Teresa after Branko has died, and seems like possibly he committed suicide too, maybe, although, he was terminally ill. And he has this unusual note for Teresa, who doesn't really remember him much, or actually they had a weird interaction before that was strained, where she was watering plants and on the floor above his, and it, ruined some of his books below. So she doesn't have necessarily, fond memories or good memories of him. Certainly doesn't know that he'd been, interested in her in a positive way. But he wrote her a note before he died, asking if she would sing at his funeral, and he gives her this frog figurine. And at first Teresa's like, this is awkward, I barely know this guy, I don't want to do it, but her parents are kind of pushing her, like, it's a last, nice thing to do for a man, like that he asked for before he died. So she does end up doing it, and it turns out at the funeral she is discovered, and I guess that's a sensational enough story that she's put on The World Is Your Stage. And so there's a lot of, excited buildup about, being able to sing in public and realize a dream. But after her song airs, there's just a lot of, negative backlash, because it seems like the whole point of it is, just gossip and cruelty and, like, celebrity and sensationalism. And they're like, what is she dressed as? And she didn't put up on enough of a show for us, and that sort of thing. And so it's a big disillusionment moment, because I guess, as we already kind of knew, this show, The World Is Your Stage, is superficial and, not actually a good part of society, as it were. But it ends up with Teresa, she's cut down by this and is quite miserable, but it seems like she finds her way back to her love of singing, and, like, shares this connection again with Branko by going to his grave and putting the frog on it and singing to him privately. And so I guess I liked all the details, but it didn't fully come together for me, all of what she was talking about. I guess I didn't fully grasp the characters. I felt like things felt I don't know if I'd want to say contrived or not, but yeah, it seemed a bit strange to me. I didn't connect to it as much as I thought I would, but I appreciate all the details and I guess the commentary on superficiality. The novel I finished that I want to talk about is He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. This was one of my anticipated 2023 releases. It is the end of a duology. I think it's the Radiant Emperor duology, which is it is a retelling of medieval Chinese history and the start of the Ming Dynasty, which was headed, the first emperor actually was this man who started his life in abject poverty and was a monk, but in this story, the man is also secretly a woman. And a lot of Zhu's point in becoming empress, or emperor really is still the title she uses, is to usher in a world where people can be who they want, but also she does have this megalomaniac sort of drive of, I have this goal and I'm not going to let anything stand in my way. And that's sort of the thrust of both novels. And this novel is a lot about conflict and attempts to, find and lose allies and that sort of thing. And we also follow other characters. We follow General Ouyang, who is a eunuch who is of her cultural ancestry too, although they'd been pitted against each other before. And he wants revenge for the death of his family. And then we follow the people of the Yuan dynasty, who are going to be the end of that dynasty. We follow the brother of Prince who was killed in the last book, and we follow this woman who is a high up woman who wants more for herself. She wants to become empress, but she's married to this man she hates, and she's, dominated and abused by him, and she uses traditionally female ways to get power, and all of these characters, a lot of them are either queer or they're dealing with, gendered or, misogyny and sexism, and there's a lot of cruelty and a lot of trauma in in their backstories and how they get what they want in this story. And Zhu, I think, is automatically the most sympathetic character in that, she still, reaches for a lot of violence, but I guess there's a hope for a better world at the end of it, and it doesn't seem like any of these other characters bring a lot of hope with them about a better world. It's a very violent world. I would say that this is a very grim, dark world. Parker Chan actually wrote in their own, Goodreads review that, they don't see this as violent as Game of Thrones. Maybe on the page it's not as explicitly violent, maybe. I'd have to, I guess, reread to make sure, but probably it isn't. But I think there's more to it than that in the whole grim, dark idea, because this is a story that does, start to depict or dance around, constant violence, sexual violence, mutilation, all sorts of things. And it's the constant go-to for all of these characters. And that's what makes the world very grim, dark, I think. And the fact that Chu maybe wants something a little different, we don't really see that come to fruition. So I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit of a cop-out to say this isn't grimdark. It is grimdark. And the truth is, I don't think I connected to it as much as I hoped I would, because it was so dark, and it's darker than the first book, and Parker Chan also realized that. So it took me a while to get through on audio. Actually, I listened to it. I was kind of invested, as I went along, because I'm a person who does love being bludgeoned to death with drama and emotion. So I guess I was in the ride for that, but ultimately I feel like this story didn't transcend more than that for me. And, it was a fun read while it was going on, but I'm kind of glad to be moving on to the next thing. I talked a lot about, trans issues and non-binary issues last week, so I guess I don't have as much necessarily to say about that anymore, except in a way I do think that's the drive of the book too, that this is an alternate, medieval China, but really what it is a vehicle to think about trans and non-binary issues for people to relate to these characters in the modern day. But for me personally, I wouldn't say I relate to them that much. I respect the soap opera. It was fun of this story. And I guess, people can grasp on to the primal emotions of these outsiders trying to find their way, but there wasn't anything deeper than that. So there we have it. Next, this should be an easy one to finish up quickly before I get to my April reading. I am still in the middle of I'm Glad I Did by Cynthia Weil. This is historical YA fiction. There's a little bit of a Jewish bent to it. So I read it in tandem with a book that I technically finished earlier in March, which is Imagining Catherine, which is also YA Jewish historical fiction that took place during the 60s, like this one does. This one's a little different. Imagining Catherine is a indie published book, kind of small fry sort of book. Cynthia Weil herself was famous in the music industry and authored some pretty popular songs, which I'll link down below if you want to listen to them. So this is, in a way, it kind of feels like a vanity project to, write about the music biz in a novel when she's, not a novelist otherwise. But, it's published by, I guess, a mid-level publisher. And it's a fun enough book, but it's definitely... It's kind of, I think, going to lean more to the plot end of things. But anyway, we're following JJ, who is this teenager who dreams of becoming a songwriter, but her immediate family are all lawyers or wannabe lawyers, and they want her to follow in their footsteps and see, songwriting as a hobby that she has to, takes up too much of her time by this point. And also she has this Uncle Bernie, who is in fact a hotshot in the music industry, but he also has some ties to the mob and is a black sheep of the family. But it's his music company, Good Music, I think it is, that opens up a job for an assistant for someone's JJ's age. But the catch is that, you file stuff, but you also have the chance to have an executive listen to your work. So it could be a step in the right direction for a songwriter. And ultimately, JJ is able to get this job. It is kind of with the help of her, her black sheep uncle, who she's secretly starting a relationship with behind her parents' back. So that's where we are now, and things seem to be kind of positive about what's going on, that, she found a partner, or two partners even, for songwriting, and her first song seems to be going very well. But there's promises of the darker side of the music biz coming up in the, the cover copy, that she's going to be dragged into a cover-up and all this stuff that makes me wonder if her parents were right to keep her away from the music biz. But that stuff hasn't happened yet. It's kind of, I guess it's interesting where there, when a book cover has stuff, that it teases out and spoils out, but it takes a little while for that stuff to happen, so it feels like a spoiler for where I am right now, but I guess I've been reading too slowly in this, and I should, finish it more quickly. I think it's going to be a fun book. I'm not sure what I'll make of all these plotty elements. Plot over character is never fully my thing, so right now I'm enjoying JJ making friends in the music biz and realizing her dream, which seems a little more character-driven, but we'll have to see how the rest of this goes. And speaking of cover copy spoiling plot, I am also in the middle of The Family CHAO by Samantha Chang, which I chose for my page 112 pick that I did a few weeks ago. And so this is a story of a Chinese-American family who they own a restaurant in Wisconsin in a small town, and we're following the three sons around and their mother, who's moved out of the family home and into a Buddhist nunnery, and their belligerent father, who runs the restaurant, and one of the big things he's doing is refusing to honor a promise to his oldest son, Dagao, who moved back to town from his job as a wannabe musician in New York to help the family out when his mother was sick. And Leo, the father, promised, after your mother gets better, I promise either I'll help you get set back up in New York, or you'll be a partner in the company. And now it's 6 years later, and Dagao's like, I want to be a partner, and Leo's like, no. and he's belligerent about it. And so family drama abounds. It's also a dramatic family drama novel. But the spoiler is that the reviews and everything do talk about how Leo is going to be killed or die, but it seems like a murder. And so, it's a whodunit mystery coming up, although I don't think it happens for a while. Like, I'm not even to page 112 yet in my, consecutive reading, but I do remember page 112, Leo was alive. So, although very ominously, I suppose, Dagao was attacking him physically and saying, I'll kill you. I think the writing is very much on the wall about Leo's demise. I mean, it's, pretty heavily hinted at. Even, the way he'll die is heavily hinted at about, this freezer in the restaurant basement that doesn't, open and close correctly. So anyway, I guess it's not too surprising, but at the same time, it is surprising that it does seem like it's not going to happen until a significant time into the book. But so far, again, I do love character drama, and I am enjoying these characters and the back and forth and the backgrounds of what they are all dealing with, the three brothers, who I do think are vaguely based on the brothers Karamazov. Which I probably also didn't say correctly, because it's a reminder I haven't read the original Dostoevsky. Maybe I should after this. And maybe I'll give this more of a pass. I do think some people rated it kind of low because of the drama stuff in it. But in a way, because it's a pastiche to that other novel, I'm more okay with the characters being a little more flat than my usual, because I feel like it's mostly supposed to be comparing in a way, although then again, what am I comparing to if I haven't read the original? I don't know. But I guess, and right now I feel like, as much as I'm whining about, character over plot stuff, the characters are fun to follow, even if maybe the drama does make it a little less nuanced than, my snobby literary proclivities. I don't know. I guess that's what Samantha Chang was going for. I think she also is of the literary sort. She is a professor at the Iowa Writers Workshop, after all, so I don't know. But you get away with it, I guess, when you compare your work to Dostoevsky. I don't know. Hopefully I'll continue to like this book. We shall see. And the final book I want to talk about here is How to Say Babylon. It's a memoir by Safiya Sinclair, which I read for the Booktube Prize Octafinals for Nonfiction Group B. And so this is a memoir that is about Sinclair's upbringing. She was born impoverished in Jamaica under a strict Rastafarian family, or a father who followed some precepts of Rastafarianism and then kind of went his own way in his own sort of patriarchal authoritarianism. And so it's about that upbringing and some of her cultural touchstones, and then what she learned and how she became her own person after that, compared to Educated by Tara Westover. And that's all I'm going to say about it right now, even though technically the octafinals are now over and I can't officially talk about the books on my ballot, all 6 books. But I think I'm going to go ahead and make a video about that coming up in the next few days, so I'll just talk about this book more then. But anyway, the Booktube Prize was started by Robert Sheard a couple of years ago, or several years ago now, and the point is for the literary book community to get together to judge the best in literary fiction or nonfiction published in the US the year before. So these are all 2023 releases. We start with a long list of 48 books, and each round we have the books. So now we just started the quarterfinals and we have 24 books per division. While the judging is going on, we're supposed to stay mum on our thoughts so we don't influence each other. But I did make a preliminary video where I talked about, preliminary thoughts about my ballot before I started reading. So I'll link to that video and more information to the Booktube Prize down below. So that about covers it for me now. Definitely the sunlight is being a little weird for lighting purposes, although I don't think the construction interrupted me as much as I feared it would, so huzzah, that's great, and I'm glad to finally get this video off and running. And I hope to be back in the very imminent future because, speaking of things I want to wrap up from the first quarter of the year, I want to do my quarterly writing wrap-up where I talk about the writing goals I set for myself in December and January, whether or not I met them, and whether a certain septa has to come and punish me. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, I hope you all are doing well with your reading and aren't as behind as I am. I have this crazy goal where I might want to try and read 12 books in April, or, start 12 books in April if I can, but it'll take a lot of willpower. I think we'll have to see how I do, but I will be back in, later videos to talk about what I am reading. So stay tuned for that as well. But yep, before, I'm completely in shadow, I'll go ahead and say thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.